This episode offers psychosocial education designed to inspire and motivate our listeners. The information provided does not constitute a therapeutic relationship nor a substitute for professional mental health care. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, call 911, go to your nearest emergency room, or for listeners in the United States, text 988 for the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Warning, this episode contains brain food that will lead to improved emotional and social intelligence. Thanks for tuning in to Harvesting Happiness today for a healthy serving of consciously prepared brain food. This is Lisa Cypers Kamen, your host. Since 2010, we've been broadcasting sound ideas for better well-being. Each week, we spotlight diverse thinkers and doers who are contemporary trendsetters and change agents, devoting their lives to creating a better world. I invite you to listen and change how you think about human happiness. Our award-winning content is fresh, optimistic, and purpose-driven media that promotes well-being from the inside out. This episode is part of the Good Citizens Election Season Survival Guide to Restoring Common Sense and Sanity in a Crazy World, produced in collaboration with renowned, fair-minded subject matter experts who provide strategies that enhance critical thinking, increase civic engagement, and foster healthy pleasure to boost personal well-being and relationship satisfaction. You can also discover more unique bonus content at More Mental Fitness by Harvesting Happiness on Substack and Medium. This episode explores human sexuality and is intended for mature audiences. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. Thanks for joining me on Harvesting Happiness and this special edition of the Good Citizens Election Season Survival Guide, helping to restore common sense in a crazy world. Today, we're talking about identity, relationships, inclusivity, and mental health with my guest, Dr. Mayeshia Price. Dr. Mayeshia Price is an associate professor in the Human Development Program within the Department of Counseling and Educational Psychology at Indiana University. Dr. Price is also an associate research scientist with the Kinsey Institute. Their current area of research focuses on the rich experiences of LGBTQ+ young people concerning sexuality, gender identity, and mental health. Welcome, Myeshia. Thanks for joining me on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I love talking about these things.
I am excited to have this conversation. And I was thinking about ways to just jump in. And here's the thing. I am a cisgender mom with 2 young adult Gen Z kids. And in doing a little bit of research for the show, I learned a very interesting statistic that 20% of Gen Zers self-identify in the LGBTQ plus community. And I just thought that was amazing.
Yeah, ultimately we're finding that, I guess, later or younger generations, that's the word we're looking for,
younger generations, the youngsters,
yes, are increasingly identifying as LGBTQ plus compared to sort of the generations that came before. There's a lot of reasons that may be. It could be that they were ultimately the actual true with the capital T number of people who are LGBTQ plus hasn't really changed. It's just that people are more comfortable identifying as such. So we're talking about checking off somewhere or telling someone that you are. And those rates absolutely have changed. But the actual number of people out there who themselves can identify within themselves that they are may actually be the same. And we just we would never know that. But it is, to me, that's a sign of there's a lot of places where you can feel down and sad about the state of the world. But that to me is a small signal of hope and progress that young people are feeling more comfortable being themselves.
I agree. I mean, I with my young adult children, I do have this conversation, and their sensitivity and awareness to the LGBTQ plus community is very open-minded, very accepting. There's no barrier, right? It's like kind of a so what. And that makes me really happy that their community has evolved to that place. On the other hand, there is an increased risk for poor mental health and outcomes within the LGBTQ plus community. And I would love for you to talk a little bit about that, because that's the
Mhm.
scary part.
Yeah, and I think that's the part that a lot of parents, right? Parents like us are afraid of when we think of our young person, because all we want to do is protect them. And then we see that kind of thing and we're like, oh no, we don't want that to be you. And so one of the things
Yeah.
that I like to tell people is that there's a middle person or a middle sort of, I guess, thing that's happening there. It's not the identity in and of itself, right? It's not that as soon as someone is part of the LGBTQ plus community that they're in and of itself going to have poor mental health outcomes. There's this thing that's happening where young people are experiencing stigma, discrimination, rejection, victimization, and all of these things are coming at them on top of all the stressors that they're already experiencing as a young person.
Yeah.
So if you think about what it was like, for me it takes a minute. I gotta go back about 20 years or so
To your
to get
younger
back
self.
right to get back to when I was in high school. But I think gosh, like it felt a lot. Like it felt like I was juggling school, I had a part-time job at a fast food restaurant that I absolutely hated, but I wanted to, have extra money. So I went there. I smelled like fries all the time. And, there was just a lot going on in my young life. Some young people are dealing with divorce, they're dealing with moving a lot, they're dealing with all these things, foster care, adoption, all these things that could be stressors in anyone's life.
Yeah.
Then you add on top of that anti-LGBTQ victimization that is happening to these young LGBTQ plus young people. And so all of those things sort of combine and create this increased risk. So I like to remind folks, if we just sort of do something about that part, right?
Yeah.
If we do something about that sort of, middle nasty sort of jumble of rejection, then we can probably do something to ameliorate some of these outcomes that we see.
Well, I think you hit on something really important, is the recognition of all of the physical and emotional and hormonal changes that go on in an adolescent and a rising adult, right? That just that alone is really tough. And then you throw in issues of sexuality and gender identity, especially if one is living in a rural environment or an environment that is not necessarily so accepting of diversity. Then you've got a whole hornet's nest of issues that need to be addressed, and the availability of services may not be there.
Yeah, yeah. If you think about it, if a lot of young LGBTQ people just want that to be the least of what they're dealing with, right? They're similar to straight cisgender kids. Like that part of them is not something they have to really think about, right?
Yeah.
They're being straight, they're being cisgender. It's not at the forefront of what everyone's talking about. It's
No.
not the forefront of what everyone is, you know, that's not what people experience bullying, right? Like that's unfortunately, you could have a bad haircut and someone's going to say something to you. Like I remember getting bullied in middle school. It wasn't bullying. I won't call it bullying, but I remember someone was upset with me and wanted to fight me because of my hairstyle. And to this day I don't know why. It was so random, but it was my hairstyle and it wasn't my gender identity or my sexual orientation, right? Like my hairstyle was going to change within a week. Like it was like not this isn't a big deal. I ignored it and we moved on. But if it were something like a core part of my identity, then that changes, that experience
Yeah.
changes, right? And so I think that's something that young people are like, just let's not make this part of like, I just want to be like everyone else. Like I enjoy volleyball and I want that to be something we talk about and something that we're focused on. Like I missed the shot at the basketball game. Like, get on me about that, but leave my gender alone. And I think that's
Yes.
the core of what's going on. And so, yeah, I think when they do feel alone and very targeted and very specific, it can be very harmful in that sense.
And the solution comes in obviously the awareness, and the more light we put on the subject matter and the more we help people understand that it is really not a box open for discussion, or it shouldn't be, right? That it's like it is what it is next,
Right.
and create a sense of allyship. And how do we do that? How do we do it as parents? How do we do it as partners, as relatives, as friends? How does society rally to become that ally instead of a bully?
I love that question. And that's quite, and I love that question because that sort of is what we have to do to support these young people and how we do, sort of take away a lot of that stigma and discrimination. A big part of it is, I think, acceptance and support. And those are big words, and people are like, well, what does that look like? How do I do it? And I think a part of it is because they think it has to look different than what they're already doing, right? We're already very accepting and very supportive of our most of us, right? Of our children and the young people that we're around. And I think an example that I've been using recently is if the Olympics is coming up, right? I think it's coming up
Tonight,
soon, the
I
Summer
think.
Olympics. Oh yeah, it's an opening ceremony, and I'm not really a sports person. Like I know things about sports, but as soon as the Olympics starts, I become like very invested in whatever it is that's on. Like it could be a sport that I've never seen a day in my life, but I become invested in it. Like I'm very, and I'm not very like I just pick a person. Like it doesn't matter what country they're from. I'm rallying, right? Like if my kid decided to play that sport, I'm rallying for my kid. I will not understand that sport at all, but I'm going to be supportive. I'm going to be accepting. And then eventually I will learn along the way, like, okay, this is how you get a point. This is how you, and I think we have to think about that when it comes to sexual orientation and gender identity. We may not understand any of it, right? But we can still be supportive and accepting of it, right? We can say, great, I thank you for sharing that with me. What can I do to support you? And it very well could be nothing because young
Yeah.
people, in my experience, they're like, hey, I just wanted you to know, but like, don't be cringe, leave me alone. Like,
Yeah,
let me
yeah.
do my thing. And that's okay. But I think the first step is sort of being there and letting them know that you're a supportive person and you're going to be there for them. That's just like a very first step.
Yeah. Like very basic, very elemental.
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
you. It doesn't matter to me, like who you choose to love, how you choose to express that. It is separate from the fact that you're the human that I love,
Hmm.
period. I mean, I think it's a very root, primal thing. And if we want healthy children, that's how we need to love them.
Yeah.
And that's hard for some people because what we fear, what we don't know, we fear. Like, is this going to rub off? Like, is this contagious? It's like, I think there's just a lack of understanding of, because there's judgment that somehow this is wrong or negative. It just is. Some flowers are white, some flowers are yellow. I mean, that's just the way it is. And I think it's hard for us as people because we are different in many ways to accept and embrace that. Although at the end of the day, our desires, what drives our humanity is very similar.
Yeah. And I think you're speaking on something because we do want likeness. It is a very natural human element. And particularly when we're afraid, like we're social beings and we want the people we care about to be like us. Like that's
Yeah.
just, and it's sort of built in there. But I do think we have some level of what that not likeness can look like. I think we can't succumb to that, right? Like we have a certain level of ability to use our big brains, our big human brains, like to sort of process that and think about it a
Amen.
little bit better.
Amen to big brain processing. Let's like give it a
Right.
shout out for a moment here.
Like I have faith in us as humans that we can do better and we can think, yes, my kid is different in their gender and or sexual orientation. However, you know, they are similar in this way or that way, or they're nothing like me, but we can still hang out and that's cool. And I think that's an important part of the process. And I think a lot of parents do get caught up on wanting a mini me. And then
Yeah.
it sort of it's I don't know that that has ever worked out. But
Hold that thought for one moment. Let's come. We're going to take a break and then we're going to come back to the mini me conversation. To learn more about the work of Dr. Mayeshia Price, please go to the kinseyinstitute.org and you can find the Kinsey Institute throughout social media on X, Facebook and Instagram at Kinsey Institute. We'll be right back. It's that time of year again, and everyone is thinking about the challenges of gift giving. This year, instead of giving another book or gift card, I'm giving Nutrafol to those in my life dealing with hair thinning. Giving it as a gift might feel strange, but trust me, they will thank you later. It is a thoughtful and unique gift perfect for both men and women. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand trusted by over 1 million people. See thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. From my own lived experience, menopause has affected many aspects of my being, including hair shedding, thinning, and coarseness. Thinning hair is different for men and women, so a one-size-fits-all approach to hair growth doesn't cut it. Nutrafol has multiple formulas for men and women that are tailored to different life stages and lifestyle factors, so you can get just what you need. Physician formulated with 100% drug-free ingredients, Nutrafol supports healthy hair growth from within by targeting key root causes of thinning: stress, hormones, aging, nutrition, lifestyle, and metabolism through whole body health. I've been religiously using Nutrafol for more than 2 years. Thanks to Nutrafol, shedding has been significantly reduced, and my hair is now thicker and healthier. Some remarkable side bonus benefits include better sleep, improved stress response, and significantly reduced pesky menopause symptoms, including hot flashes. Building a hair growth routine is simple. Purchase online, no prescription required. Automated deliveries and free shipping keep you on track. Plus, with a Nutrafol subscription, you can save up to 20%, access free naturopathic doctor consults, and a Headspace meditation membership is included. Whether you're gifting to yourself or a loved one, give the gift of great hair growth this holiday season. Right now, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off any order. Enjoy free shipping when you subscribe. Go to Nutrafol.com and enter the promo code Happiness Gift. Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code Happiness Gift. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code Happiness Gift. Now let's take that pause. We'll be right back. Harvesting Happiness is rooted in science. Our work facilitates applied positive psychology practices through media and consulting. We're committed to sound ideas for better well-being, leading to increased life satisfaction and a better world for everyone. We're not into pseudoscience or quick fixes. We're focused on common sense backed by rigorous research. Healthy critical thinking is the foundation for our discussions. We encourage you to challenge preconceptions and explore ideas with a curiously discerning mind. Collaboration with our guests is united by an inclusive vision to boost resilience, critical thinking, communication, and problem solving through civilized discourse and pleasurable relational engagement for everyone. Each day, we have the intellectual freedom to be happy or the liberty to be miserable, regardless of external circumstances. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health, please seek support because good psychological health is vital to the achievement of a healthy and satisfying life. Visit harvestinghappiness.com for psychosocial and educational services that boost emotional and social intelligence. This episode explores human sexuality and is intended for mature audiences. And we're back continuing the conversation with my guest today, Dr. Mayeshia Price. We're talking about identity, relationships, inclusivity, and mental health. Let's get back to it. So, Mayeshia, prior to the break, we were talking about the mini-me complex. We didn't use those words, mini-me complex, but it sounds like it could work for the sake of the conversation about parents sometimes desiring their children to be in their mirror image, when in fact it is the antithesis of what an adolescent or a rising adult is feeling. Mm-hmm. They want to be nothing like us.
It's so interesting because it's the plot of like every Pixar movie.
Yes,
it's very common, but I think parents think that their situation is different, and I don't think everyone always realizes they're doing it. So I do want to give some credit to parents that they may not realize they're even doing it because they're not forcing a occupation. It's not as obvious as it is, and just as it's portrayed in the media. But it's often happening, and it's something that we study in developmental psychology when we start thinking about identity development. So there are all these different ways that identity development is huge, and it's very core to your being. It's sort of figuring out who you are, and there's these different stages for developing your identity. And we want to allow young people to be able to do that. And this happens not sort of, it happens across, honestly, the previous research sort of like to think of it as just adolescence, but I think it happens throughout childhood and further
Lifetimes.
into, it's a lifetime, right?
It's a lifetime
And
pursuit.
it should be. I think it
Yeah.
absolutely should be. There's just one particular identity that is basically where parents sort of hand them their identity in a way. And it's sort of it's called identity foreclosure, which sounds very much like
Oof.
what you may
Ominous.
think it is. And it's where they didn't get a chance to explore who they are. It was just sort of like, we're these kind of people, and this is the kind of person you are. And that could be, I think, some of the examples, that are often given are sort of like, we're farmers, you're a farmer. I don't know, I'm trying to think, we're doctors, you're a doctor.
Uh,
And
we're
sometimes that does
Republicans,
happen.
you're Republicans. We're
Yes,
Democrats, you're Democrats.
yes. And sometimes that does happen, right? Because
What we
they
do.
have shared values,
Yeah.
right? And so the values end up working themselves out. However, oftentimes it's because they didn't have a chance to explore them, right? They didn't have a chance to
Yeah.
leave the church and come back after deciding, yes, I do believe the same things, and now I'm back to worship alongside my parents. They didn't have that opportunity to do that. And so then these different types of identities are associated with different outcomes in terms of mental health and well-being as an adult. And so I won't get into that. But what I will say is what we want to have is identity achievement, which is where they get the opportunity to
Yes.
explore that. They get the chance to figure themselves out. They get in this opportunity where they don't have a lot of pressure on them. They don't have all these expectations. They just get to try different things out. This is maybe who I am today. This is me. Just kidding. That didn't really work out for me.
Right.
But maybe I'll do this. And I
I know
think,
that well
yeah, and
with
if you
my
think
own
about
kids.
it, yes, we all think about it like the emo phase, right? Like that's very common. Oh, everybody goes through an emo phase and then they're done with it. But that's the one I could think of often that like this was probably during a lot of people have a phase where they did something and then they decided, just kidding, that's not who I am. That I tried that on, it wasn't me. I think something that's happening more common now is that sort of playing with identities is more visible to more people than it was in the
Yeah.
past because we have social media and like everyone gets to see you playing with an identity. And you put it in your bio, you put it, you tell everyone, and then people, it might be harder for you to come back from that because it becomes, part of your online persona or whatever the case may be. And so I think people see that and they don't realize that this is a young person who's just exploring who they are.
It's like the weather, right? Or the winds, the winds, blow in and they blow out. And
Mhm.
I think that's the way it should be. It's taken me a while with my own adult children to understand that there's a sort of capriciousness to their behavior. And it's as it should be, right? Because they're test driving things.
Yes.
Does
Yes.
this fit? Does that fit?
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, I hope that adults, I hope that, people continue to do that into 40s, 50s, once children,
60s,
leave the
70s,
nest,
80s,
then get to do
90s.
it all over again.
Well, maybe it's cyclical too, right? Like you hear of people going, maybe living one type of life, and then they go through a midlife evolution or transformation, and they're reborn into another identity and a
Mhm.
completely different life. And that's pretty liberating,
Mhm.
that we get to live in this time where that's possible.
Yeah, because we're living longer, and that's
Yeah.
amazing. Like we get
Yeah.
to decide maybe I'll have a different career. you know, like yeah, so, yeah. I do think that, and I think going back to the mini me thing, I think we definitely don't want that because
No.
we want to have young people develop their own identities and we want them to be able to like the things that they like, enjoy the things that they enjoy,
Love
um,
who they want to love.
and love who they want to love and
Yes.
have their own gender expressions and wear the things they want to wear and have the haircuts they want to have. Because ultimately, by not doing so, you're forcing your own ideas and your own way, your own identity, ultimately, like your own expression onto someone else. And they're a whole person. Like they are not you. They are not, I think people think this is me. Like this is a combination of my DNA and someone else's. But the way that happened is so special and beautiful that it actually is, and it's not as simple as that. And it's such a like the way that combination happened is so far removed from you that this is a totally new, unique person with their own ideas and thoughts and feelings, and those should be respected.
They should. And there's also like kind of a randomness to it as well, right? It's a little
Oh
bit of
yeah.
like the luck of the draw. Like you never know what you're going to get from the combination of that egg and that sperm and
Yeah.
that human. And it's interesting. Like as a parent, we're both parents. Like I mean, it astounds me every day still. Like, wow, that person is all that. It's
Yes.
amazing.
Yes. I'm much more introverted and my kid is much more extroverted. And there are times I make decisions purely for this kid. And I'm like, yes, like if I had the choice, I would have a giant library, live in a mountain, and decide when to interact with people. But I would never do that to my kid because it wouldn't be healthy for
Yeah.
my kid to be in
For who
that
he
situation.
is.
Yes, exactly. For who my kid is. That's not part of how they want to live life. And so, we're thinking, where are we going to travel? And my then 5-year-old was like, I want to go to Miami or Vegas. And I'm like, how do you even know New York
Yeah. How do
City?
you know these places at
Yeah,
5 years old?
exactly. But they're all very extroverted cities.
And that's
Wow.
that's like also about like being a good steward, right? Like if you think of our job as a parent is to be like a steward or a shepherd or the caretaker of this little person's soul and life
Yes,
so they can fly, they can
yes,
launch.
yes.
And that's why I love the work that you're doing, the research that you're working on, because it forces us to look at our children a little bit differently, right? Not so cookie cutter.
Yeah, I think a lot of times parents get really, especially now, there's a lot of pressures on parents. And I do want again to draw attention to that. Like there's a
Yeah.
lot of information coming at them on how they can, there's a lot that they have to do, right? You have to do this, you have to do that. A lot of it, I will say off the bat, is not coming from people who have done work in the area. A lot of it's coming from social media moms, right? Like there are content creators who are like, get these wooden toys because anything that has plastic is going to cause cancer. So again, I'm not advocating one way or the other, but what I am saying is that sometimes parents are doing the best they can with what they have.
Yeah.
And I think we have to give credit to that. But we also shouldn't be trying to create children, right? And create to mold them into the kind of adult that we want to see. Like, I think there are a lot of people who are going about this and sort of like, I have this 1-year-old that I want to get into Harvard. So I'm going to do everything I can to do this for the next, whatever, 17 years. And then this kid is like, listen, my, you know, life ambition is to, live off the grid in Vietnam. And their hearts are broken because they have quote unquote invested
Right, right.
into this kid. And I think, you know, this idea that we're investing in like the thing you should be investing in your child is, support, love, you know, those kinds of things, and not finance and education. It's just so I do think that if we start to think about our children in the way you just said as steward, we're the bumpers
Yes.
at the bowling alley. Like,
Yeah. Yeah,
just
yeah,
lifting
yeah, yeah.
those little bumper guards up. We're pushing the pillow and when they jump off the couch to make sure they don't hurt themselves, but we're allowing them to be who they are. We're just making sure that they don't end up in the ER because of it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And then the ROI is them being a good person. I mean, I think ultimately at the end of the day, like how is this little person contributing to society and making their mark on the world, contributing in the best way that they can, not how I think they should or you think
Yeah.
they should.
Yeah, that's absolutely at least my goal as a parent. When
Me
people
too.
ask, I think there's this expectation as a developmental psychologist that I have, oh, well, you have a PhD. I know that you are, constantly enforcing, these, educational things. And I'm like, actually, I care a lot about my kid not being the bully at school. Like I
Yeah.
want my kid to think and not to do nice things because it's sort of like I get attention for doing nice things, but because I want to do nice things. Like I want to do I want to do the right thing because it's the right thing. And so I do things like we were driving and there was someone who had a sign up saying I'm hungry. It was just like I'm hungry, I need food. And my kid can read and saw it and so I could see them looking in my, rearview mirror and I said, "Do you have anything?" And so they started looking around and they opened up a little backpack and pulled out a snack and put the window down and handed kids always have random snacks,
Yeah.
like some granola bar thing. And the person was very, very, very grateful. And so it's things like that that are important to me. It's sort of like,
That's
I
where we
want
should
you
focus.
to, yeah, like I want you
Yeah.
to think for yourself and figure out what is right for you. That's good choices.
We're out of time, but the story that you just told me about your son really typifies the real world inclusive well-being that we're talking about. A bit different than your subject matter expertise, but it all ties together that ultimately at the end of the day, it's about doing the right thing.
Yeah, because I think if young people are in that frame of mind, then they're also not going to go to school and bully the queer kids, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
They're
Yeah.
not going to go. And so I think that's what it boils down to is let's just be good people to each other.
Dr. Mayeshia Price, you're going to come back, I hope, sooner than later. We're going to finish this conversation. To learn more about Dr. Mayeshia Price's work, please go to the kinseyinstitute.org on X, Facebook, and Instagram at Kinsey Institute. Dr. Price is an associate research scientist at the Kinsey Institute. That was so much fun. Thank you. Thanks for joining us today on Harvesting Happiness and this special edition of the Good Citizens Election Season Survival Guide, helping to restore common sense in a crazy world. On behalf of my guest, Dr. Mayeshia Price, this is Lisa Cypers Kamen, wishing you kind thoughts, kinder words, and the kindest of actions. Until next time, remember, happiness is an inside job. Happiness is your inside job. Please go out and rock your day and remember to be kind to one another. Oh, and remember, this conversation with Dr. Price continues as a bonus episode over at More Mental Fitness by Harvesting Happiness on Substack and Medium. Want to explore more sound ideas for better well-being? You can listen to part 2 of this conversation and the Good Citizens Election Season Survival Guide to Restoring Common Sense and Sanity in a Crazy World at More Mental Fitness by Harvesting Happiness on Substack and Medium. Subscribe, listen, and share hundreds of downloadable episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Connect with and follow us on most social media channels. To learn more about lifestyle management and mental fitness consulting services, please visit harvestinghappiness.com. Harvesting Happiness and More Mental Fitness are produced by Lisa Cypers Kamen, Andrea Mengele, Robin Boyd, Andrea Daly, and the excellent team at Podfly Productions, including Eric Begay, Kimberly Beck, and Alec Guest, in collaboration with TogiNet Radio, KBUU, RadioMalibu.net, and is available on PRX, the Public Radio Exchange.